what's up, man?
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
So I just want to say first that I'm not defending Mr. Grill, but just the positions that he took. Um,
He took a
but
position?
yeah, I think that his position was that even if somebody's going to do something, even if there's a likelihood of somebody doing something bad, we don't necessarily do something that's going to cause irreparable harm to them to prevent them from doing it.
Yeah, but I would agree with that.
Um,
So
okay.
I always try to get in the mud with people based on their own personal worldview. So his personal worldview is that there's degrees to everything. Right?
That there's degrees to everything? Yeah, that things are on a
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah. So the contention that we ended up with is that we agreed that pedophilia would be very high on the list. So my contention being, of course, we don't try to proactively stop all criminality. That would be insanity. But if somebody already offends and we have a treatment that's almost 100% effective, why would you not give it to them?
Um, so I would probably be on the same side as Mr. Grill, depending on the severity of the preventative measure. Probably not a good idea if it's going to cause irreparable harm to the person that it's happening to. And I say this as a father.
So what about the irreparable harm? Okay, so let's back up. Um, are we assuming that if we use a less good treatment that that's okay? Like,
Um,
let's say that the offense for a pedophile would be 30% higher or 40% higher if you didn't use chemical castration.
well,
Uh,
like
is
even
that is that okay? Or?
so, if the rate in which they're going to be more likely to commit it the first time, is that what you're saying?
Well, no. Let's say we knew that the reoffense rate
Mm,
was near
it's
100, near 100%.
but it's actually five
But
point
we
one
had
percent.
a, but let's just say it was near 100%, just for the sake of argument.
I
If, for the
think
sake of argument, it was near 100%, and you had a cure that was near 100%, wouldn't you prescribe the cure?
um, I think that I wouldn't do that, but I would take other measures to prevent them from having access to children. I think if somebody at
Great.
that point, I would say that this person is criminally insane, and I would probably have them. I think the most charitable thing I could do for a person like that it has to have them heavily monitored, like a person in a halfway house kind of deal. If not, if it's that high, you say it's like 99% that they will reoffend.
Yeah.
I would probably have them in conjunction with like a mental health facility to where they get treated to where that number is lowered. And if it can't get lowered, then they probably wouldn't be able to be freed from that. If we had some like
Got
mystical
it.
way of knowing.
And I'm willing to grant all of this to you. I just need you to tell me why that's the better option, and
So
then base it and ground it in something that's tangible, other than because I feel that way.
yeah, well, I don't know what you mean. Do you think that we have like is like rights as an American? Is that something that you would consider
No,
to be a
I
good reason?
believe in objective morality based on deontological Christian ethics.
Gotcha. I
So
I believe in personally I believe in
utilitarianism.
no, I'm a deontologist as well.
Okay,
And my deontological framework would say if something's wrong, don't do it. And to me,
got it.
causing harm to another person is wrong, and I could never prescribe you to do it. So I would always take the route in which we're going to prevent harm from being done while causing the without hurting somebody, in
Wait, this
all
is
cases
bizarre.
possible.
So what are your deontological ethics and duties based on?
Um, I would say that my most primary belief, I think, would probably be the right to autonomy, like bodily autonomy. I think all of our rights probably stem from having the right to your own autonomy.
So preference.
Just like any deontological system,
No,
yeah.
Not all deontological systems rely on preference,
Well, sorry,
and
all
especially Christian
non
ethics.
yeah, I say all of them that don't derive their ethics from a higher power, which I would still say to some degree there's a preference for following that higher power. Like even if you
Well,
believe
then
God
that's
exists, you don't
all.
have to
But that's
obey.
all arbitrary. That's all arbitrary. Then.
Well, you're starting to
If you
sound
have
like Darth
nothing, if you have
Dawkins.
nothing, well, I mean, if you have nothing to ground it in, then your deontological ethics are just basically your own personal code, right?
I I would say that I mean, does it have more inherent value if you derive it from somebody else's personal code?
No,
Yeah, I
it
would
has
just
more
argue that
inherent value if you derive it from God's personal.
I think that by just saying that it's God's, it's somebody else's, and you're just using a different it's kind of I'm trying to say this in a way that's not I don't mean I don't necessarily mean it in a negative connotation. I know a lot of religious people and I understand why they believe what they believe, but I would say it's kind of snaky to just say like, well, God is the other person, so I'm going to use their framework.
I agree. So I'll go ahead and justify it, and then you can justify yours. Does that sound fair?
Sure.
Okay. You cannot in any way justify any morality outside of God. It's not possible.
um okay, is this like uh, just let me know if it is. Does this go down like the presuppositional loop back to God
All
exists
ar-
because he exists?
all argumentation goes down presupposition.
Correct. Yeah, I didn't know if you were gonna go that route. I guess I would say that if I don't have the right to my autonomy, then the idea of anything, like basically all bets are off. Then anything goes. We can kill, rape, we can murder anybody we want. We can rape anybody we want. If an individual doesn't have the right to autonomy, just everything falls apart.
What are you grounding that in? Like we could feasibly have a society where people rape and murder, and it would still function.
Sure, I
You're just
agree.
basing all of this on preference, right?
Yeah, my preference to not live in a world where everybody is killing,
Right,
stealing, raping, and
right.
murdering.
So,
Yeah,
and this was my whole point. Is like, okay, if we're just going to base everything off of preference, and this is just your preference, can you ground your preference? And I don't
sure.
believe that the answer is yes, right?
Sure. I would say no, but I would
Right.
also extend that out to any other argument, including morality derived from God. Um,
But I don't understand that because all of the morality that you use right now, currently,
mhm.
is stolen from Christianity, isn't it?
I think that morality existed before Christianity did.
Okay, that's not my question, though. My question is, isn't all of your current morality stolen from Christianity?
I- in what way do you mean? Like I studied the Christian text and said I like these things, so I'm
Well,
going to keep
that
them.
English common law is based specifically on Christian ethics, and that American law is based on English common law.
Uh,
So all of the ethics that you have been taught have been Christian ethics. If they haven't been, you explain the ethics that you have that are non-Christian based, because I don't think that you can.
um,
I think that what happens with most of the secularists that I talk to is that they steal their morality from my God and then claim my God's not real.
well, I would say that some of my positions don't align with Christian ethics as well.
Okay, which one?
Um, I think that would you say that Christians are morally justified in? Well, for one, I'm pro-choice. I'm also against the
But you
idea.
can't justify, but you can't justify being pro-choice because you're going to agree with me that human life begins at conception, right?
Sure. Well, we've already agreed that I can't justify my moral positions insofar as that I don't have a
Let's
higher
just say,
power.
But let's just say you did have a higher power that said it was okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
If
my God says,
if human life starts at conception,
which I
and
don't
then
believe.
you're against murder, but you just said you were for it. So when does human life begin?
Um, I would say that sentience would be my bar.
Ah, but you could never define for me what that means.
Sentience? Consciousness.
Yeah. Ah, so define consciousness.
Consciousness?
Mm-hmm. So,
Think
like,
of
could I
how I
kill
would.
someone in a coma?
No, sorry. Once consciousness
Right? No.
hang on. Once consciousness begins, once sentience has been achieved, I would say now this thing is worthy of moral consideration.
Got it. So then tell me what that is.
Sentience? Yeah.
Yeah, consciousness, sentience.
How do you measure it?
Yeah, tell me how.
I'm trying to think of a good way to word this so that my wording doesn't get taken out of context here.
Sure, take your time. You can even.
Yeah, I would just say like the ability
you
to
can
think.
Google the definition.
No, I would just say the ability to think, because if you can think, like you know,
Well, then you're
therefore
fucked.
you are.
I mean, now you really suck because
Okay.
there's no way possible that you could say that a person who's in a coma can think.
No, I said that I would ascribe moral value to something once it has achieved sentience.
Yeah, but why?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, like I said too, I can't justify any of my moral positions in a higher power.
Right.
Well, but if you
And
like,
this
I mean,
is my whole. But you see where I'm going here? It's like this is my
Yeah,
whole problem is that we'll be circular for the rest of the day because you
right?
can't really define when life begins. You can't define when consciousness really happens, and what you say instead is, look, once something is conscious, then it's murder. But you can't even really tell me logically why it would be murder that it has to achieve what you consider consciousness first, if you can't even describe for me what consciousness is except lack of thought.
No, but the ability
That makes no sense,
ability to
right?
think. Yeah, the ability to think.
So if a person had the ability to think and no longer has the ability to think, why can't we kill them?
If there's no chance of them ever being able to regain
No,
it,
that's
yeah,
not what
I
I
would say.
asked.
Okay, then.
Well, wait. There's a chance that every fetus is going to have the
No,
ability.
I said to regain the ability. I want to see that benchmark of gaining
Fair
sentience.
Enough. So fair enough. I agree. So let's back up. And let me just ask you again. Why is it that they have to have the ability to think first before it's immoral to kill them rather than just the potential to have the ability to think first?
Because then I understand that there's a capacity for suffering.
For suffering?
Yeah, there's a capacity for that.
If somebody's unthinking, are they suffering?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? If somebody's
unthinking, are they suffering?
No.
Well, then you just defeated your own argument, my friend.
How would you even define if someone is thinking? Like, am I thinking right now?
Yes.
How do you know?
Well, you can't talk without having a thought.
But how do you know?
Right.
Like, what justifies? It's just like it feels like it's just an opinion. Is there a way to measure it?
A way to measure thought?
Yeah. Is there a way to measure?
Well, yeah. I mean, we do have we do have ways to measure brain waves and can tell when there's thought activity in the brain. Absolutely. But I don't think you need that to justify that there's thoughts.
But how do you know there's thought? Thinking is different than brainwave.
No,
That's the problem. I think.
Hang on. Without anybody else jumping in.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Let me just.
That's kind of going to the weeds.
Yeah. Let me just get back to this. Why is it that you think it's moral to kill a person who's already had thought because you think that the potential is they'll have it again, versus a fetus who has the potential to have thought? You don't see that as being contrarian to your own personal belief structure?
No, I would say that once something has achieved sentience, even if sentience is temporarily lost, the potential to have, like, once you achieve sentience by my framework, I would say that you are now guaranteed moral consideration.
Yeah, I get that, but I can't figure out why one's okay but not the other. So if you're in a coma and you can't think, and somebody kills you, why is that worse than a fetus that's going to think?
Well, we don't know that it will either. I mean, there's lots
Well,
of...
you don't know if the guy in the coma will wake up, though.
Correct. Well, like I said too, like in this position that you've crafted, or in the situation that you've crafted, we have somebody that has already been granted moral consideration.
Yeah,
And we have something that I have not granted moral consideration. Well, yeah, you're asking me. I can only answer for me. Absolutely.
It's super bizarre to me. It doesn't make any sense to me because what you're talking about is thought potential.
I would say that once you have gained sentience, you now have certain inalienable rights. However, if the person in the coma...
What? So, based on what? Just your opinion, right?
Yes, just as much as you base your moral foundation
well,
on your opinion that God is real.
I can at least deal with that, right? So I can at least deal with, okay, this is just your opinion. But how is it not contrary to your own worldview and your own opinion to say that your whole metric for whether or not something has inalienable rights is whether or not it has the potential to think? And then say, I'm pro-abortion. That makes no sense to me.
Because a fetus that has not yet achieved consciousness has not hit the bar for moral consideration yet. Because it is, as far as I'm concerned, something that hasn't achieved consciousness is not alive. It has, there's no part of it that I would call a living thing. So it would be like if
so
I had...
when does life begin for a fetus?
When does it have the ability to think?
Well, when does life begin for it? Yeah, by your metric.
So my stance on abortion has always been that once consciousness has been achieved, I am no longer for it.
Well, when is that?
I don't have an exact time, but I can stake my position on that.
I mean, come on, man. Like, you can't be like, hey, abortion is fine, and then I say, well, when? And you go, I don't know. Like, well,
hang on. So my best understanding is that it's around 5 to 6 weeks is when the first electrical brain activity begins to occur. But if you want me to pinpoint and say like it's not uniform either, you know, it's not like every single fetus has like on day 40, the 6th hour, 36 seconds and like 12 milliseconds, consciousness is now achieved. But I would say that...
How can we gauge it? And how can we gauge it? How can you gauge it? How can you gauge by your own moral ethical code of it's murder the second something has sentience, and sentience within your code is when it can start to think, but you don't know when it can start to think? How do you justify abortion at all?
Wait, would you say that there's no possible way of making a moral statement about something that you don't know everything about?
No.
Okay, well then that's what I'm doing.
Back up, Juanita. Okay, because again, what you're saying doesn't make any sense. Let's say that you said, Andrew, I think that life begins at 4 weeks, and that's when something is sent. So anything before that, within my moral framework, would be murder. Would that be accurate?
Can you repeat that? I don't want to give a false...
So let's say that we knew that a fetus was thinking at 4 weeks. That means that it deserves now moral consideration, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So then that wouldn't be an arbitrary cutoff point, would it?
No, if you said we knew it was thinking, no, that would hit my bar.
Right. But what if you're confused as to whether or not somebody who's in a coma will regain consciousness or not? Can you kill them?
If I'm confused?
Yeah, you don't know for sure. There's a 50-50 chance.
I would say no. They've already met the threshold for my moral consideration.
So
Although,
so you would have to say no, right?
yeah, I would lean towards no. However, if they had any wishes of their own, I would defer to them always.
Okay, well, let's just say that there's no wishes present.
Sure.
So which would you defer to?
I would always, if there's any chance that they will regain their consciousness, I would err on the side of it is immoral to kill this person.
Well, that seems totally fair to me. So then why would you create this arbitrary cutoff point, or you don't even know if the fetus is conscious or not, and still say that it's okay to kill them if you wouldn't give that same consideration to the person in the coma?
I'm confused as to where you think the inconsistency is. Because
Well,
when it
the
comes to the fetus,
inconsistency, well, because we're talking about, from your standpoint, you say once conscious thought is in some way achieved by whatever metric you come up with, then that thing at that point deserves moral consideration. Am I incorrect about that?
yeah, until consciousness is ceased indefinitely. Like we don't care about
I
dead
don't.
bodies.
I
Yeah,
don't think
no, I
that's.
get it. I get it. Okay, so um, you're saying that consciousness then, in your metric, happens with a fetus when? And your answer is, I don't know.
Well, I said I don't know
How is
exactly.
that? Okay, but so
We have a
then
good
I don't
idea.
understand your. I don't understand your what you're saying. Then
Okay,
you're saying
so
we have a good idea. So what if like would you say then, and you would have to, I guess, by this logic, that if somebody had an abortion at, let's say, 4 weeks and 1 day, and the baby was conscious, then the mother did murder that person, right?
yeah, I would say that that's immoral.
Okay, but you don't know when that happens.
Oh, I thought you were saying we knew that it was conscious.
Yeah, but you don't know when consciousness happens when it comes to a fetus, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. In your scenario, I thought you were telling me that we do have this knowledge when the mother made the call.
Yeah, I was, and then I was qualifying with we do. You say it's murder. Fair enough. I can agree with that. Makes sense to me. So when does consciousness start with a fetus?
It generally, so all the understanding that we have is that it's 5 to 6 weeks, and
Do you know?
I would probably speak as carefully about anything if we're talking about something to this degree of scrutiny that it's probably this is my understanding. As much as I can know anything else, that I would derive data to come to an understanding. I would say I'm as
Okay,
confident of
so
that as I am as like the miles per gallon that I get from my vehicle before I buy it.
okay, well let's just go within this framework then, even though it by itself is inconsistent, I'm just gonna go with it, right? So anything past 4 weeks in your estimation with abortion would be murder,
Well,
correct?
I would put it at 5 because it's 5 to 6, so I'd say five
Okay,
weeks.
anything after 5 weeks would be murder.
Yeah, unless we knew otherwise that there wasn't any consciousness. Yeah.
Okay. So a woman at 6 weeks has an abortion, she goes to jail for murder, right?
Um, as far I get a little sketchy when we come to like legal prescriptions. I think that's up to the law. Well, no, that's not
Okay,
for me
so
to decide.
somebody shoots my wife in the fucking head.
They go to court
He
and a
goes
judge
to jail for
decides.
murder, right?
The judge decides this. We have a legal process. You'll never get me to say that somebody
Investigation
should
is
go to.
done, right? Yeah.
Well, that's still. I'm not the judge.
But I'm
I
just
don't
saying
have the
there
evidence.
would be an investigation, but
Well, let's
the
pretend you
the
are the
biggest
judge,
but the biggest
and you had
punishment would.
100% incontrovertible proof.
Yeah.
A guy walked in and shot my wife in the head, and the maximum that you could give him was 25 years. Would you give it to him?
Would I give him the maximum?
Yeah. Shot my
Um,
wife in the head in
Well,
cold blood just because she was somehow an inconvenience to him.
I don't know if I would automatically give somebody a maximum sentence for committing a heinous crime.
Okay,
I
fair
would have
enough.
to
Would you give him
examine the.
any sentence?
Well, yeah, sure. I wouldn't let somebody walk free. If I was a judge, I wouldn't let somebody walk free. I would try to look at
Okay, so let's just
precedents. Let
say you give
me put it
them
this way:
2 years.
I
Well,
would try
let's
to honor the
we can pick
system
the
in the best way that the laws have been laid out and precedents have been set in my best faith
Gotcha.
effort to. I don't
And
believe that it's a crime
right.
deterrent, but that justice has been served that is expected of me as a judge.
So let me repeat back your worldview to you. I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. And
Yeah.
you can correct me anytime that I'm wrong, and I'm fine with that. So you think that people only deserve moral consideration once they have achieved a state of consciousness.
Yes.
When they have achieved a state of consciousness, you consider them to be human beings, worthy of the same moral consideration of every other human being.
So I grant them
If,
personhood and have the same rights as any other person. Yes.
gotcha. If a mother kills, or I'm sorry, aborts her child past the point of 5 weeks, which is when you think that sentience exists,
Yeah.
they have, in your worldview, committed murder, correct?
Yeah, with one exception, and it's the exception that everybody takes. But it's based on my you have the right to your own bodily
Yeah.
autonomy. If there is any risk to you, to your own autonomy, I would say that it would be self-defense to abort.
Oh, okay. Well, what does risk mean to you?
Um, I think that it's determined by a number of factors. But if there's any risk, this is where it gets a little bit dicey because if I think if somebody's just breaking into my house to steal my TV, I think that I have the right to shoot anybody who's entering my
Them?
house. Yeah,
Sure,
because
because they're a threat to you, right?
yeah, I think if anybody's trying to cause me, if they say like, "Hey, I'm going to break your arm," and they approach me in a way that makes me feel like they're going to, I think I have the right to use maximum amount of force to prevent it from happening too. So
Gotcha.
if there's enough if the person has enough information to where they feel that their livelihood or like their autonomy is going to be irreparably damaged, I think that they would have the right to defend themselves from that as well. And I've even had some.
So okay, fair enough.
So I would
I'm
say in that
totally
situation,
catching what you're saying. So let's start at 9 months. At
sure.
9 months in the pregnancy, if a woman feels in some way that this child is a threat to her autonomy, could she be able to abort it?
Like if she doesn't have give birth to it.
She's dilating.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
She's
I mean,
dilating but hasn't given birth to it.
yeah, she has not given birth to it.
So I mean, this is more than if she has information that would correctly lead her to that assumption. Yeah. Um,
What
not
about
if she.
eight? What about 8 months?
I don't see why 8 months would
you
be
just go all the way back, right?
worse.
Yeah, or 7 or 6 or 5 or 4.
Yeah,
Or
I don't
8.
see how like decreasing how far along she is would make it less moral.
Fair enough. So, what information would she need to have?
That she would have to have information that would inform her that her autonomy is threatened by it. Just like
What about financially? What if she's just threatened financially? Would that be okay?
no, I don't think that anybody should die because of lack of money in any
What if
circumstance.
it'll just stretch her pussy out and she doesn't want that? Would that be okay then?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, what circumstances would it be okay if the life of the mother was at threat?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the furthest extreme. Like if that wasn't okay, then I wouldn't have any argument at all.
Right. Okay.
If they
So
said,
fair enough. I'll just concede that that's true. Absolutely. I'll just hand it to you. If the mother's life's at risk, I understand.
yeah, I don't think anybody
And
would
I'll
be
just
against
give it.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I'll just give it to you. So what else?
Um, if I think if it was ever to a point where a doctor came to a woman and said, if you go through with this pregnancy, you will not be able to, your body won't be able to function the same way that it was before. You will have irreparable harm done
in
to your
what
body.
way though? I don't know what that means. Stretched out pussy is is a function that they'll never
That shit
have
snap
in
back.
time.
I banged a lot of moms. It snaps back. We good.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm being legitimate with this question.
I am
I'm
I am
asking.
too. Yeah, I would
So the
say.
So if it's not the life of the mother, what?
So I would to evaluate your question, I would refer it back to somebody threatening me. If it was an equivalent of like if it was the equivalent of like breaking a bone, I would say I don't know if that's my threshold or not. I'd have to think about it, cause like you're saying
You have
like
to
a
think about a lot of these things, don't you? It's almost like you haven't really thought them through.
well
Like you don't
I
really
don't
know when you think that the threshold should even be met. Like when? Give me a
well
week number. You
like I
know,
said if there's going to be irreparable harm. If you want
irreparable harm, but that's subjective. Like, what do you mean irreparable harm? What does that mean?
to where you now say when I'm telling you I have to think about something, I'm trying to craft an answer that you're going to accept about how I feel. So I'm trying to
And
put
I
it in
think that's
words
fair.
that
Yeah, I think that's fair.
so it's
Go
not as
ahead.
though I haven't thought of this. I just have never spoken to you.
Sure, fair enough. So now that you're thinking about it, take your time. What does it mean by irreparable damage? Where do you draw the threshold? What's the line?
Wait, are you just looking for my definition of irreparable damage?
No, I'm
Oh,
asking
okay.
you where you draw the line on irreparable damage. What does that mean? So this is the whole problem with
I would say
this entire scenario, right? It's like you say it's consciousness. Consciousness starts at 5 weeks, maybe. I go, okay, that's fair enough. It starts at 5 weeks, maybe. So let's go ahead and deconstruct that. So if it starts at 5 weeks, maybe, let's just grant you 7 weeks, just for the sake of doing it. Is anything past 7 weeks considered murder by you? And you say, well, yes, unless it's irreparable damage to the mom. So it's fair for me to ask you then, what would that mean, irreparable damage to mom?
well, yeah. So I think the best worded answer I could give you is that if there would be a continued suffering as a result that has no way to be resolved.
What about, but not financially?
No, physical.
Yeah, but
Physical suffering.
financially, a person could obviously incur a lot of suffering from an
Sure, but I
implant.
don't. Those things can change. That is something that can be resolved.
Gotcha. So it has to be physical.
It would have to be something physical because again, I'm going back to bodily autonomy. You have the right to preserve your own bodily autonomy against anything, and if you don't
But that
have
doesn't
that,
mean a stretched out pussy, right? It has to be like some type of damage that's
yeah,
real.
irreparable. Sorry, irreparable
Okay.
damage. So, because like if I'm hurt, but it's gonna get better. Like if somebody says I'm gonna punch you in the arm and it's gonna hurt like a son of a bitch for 2 weeks, I don't think I have the right to kill that person.
Well, I think all of that's fair. So we start at the, let's just assume for a second that sentience is 6 weeks. Maybe an extra week.
Okay.
Okay. This falls within your threshold.
Mm-hmm.
Mommy goes down at 7 weeks and gets an abortion. This is murder in your purview. Let's say that she went and saw a doctor, and the doctor said, there's no particular reason I can see why you can't conceive this child. Now we're in murder territory, so what happens to mom?
Then she has to face the court. If the court has decided that that's illegal, then yeah, she killed a person.
Well, I mean, what do you think?
Oh, I
Do
think
you
that
think it's murder?
yeah, she took a life that she unnecessarily took a life that didn't have to die, and I think that that's horrible, and I probably
So
should
as
be
far as a
illegal.
compromise goes on abortion, we can compromise and say anything past 7 weeks would be murder.
Well,
And you
with
need to face a penalty as a mom if there's no actual physical threat to you that's provable, right?
yeah, and I think that I extend that out pretty far. However,
Okay, great.
I also
So then
acknowledge
what was
that
your problem? So then what was your problem with my argument with Mr. Girl?
I would say that chemical castration is causing irreparable harm to a person.
Great. But I'm I'm kind of beside myself now that we're talking about this, because you and I can agree that if you have sex with a child, that's irreparable harm to the child, right?
Yeah, I never said you should be able to have sex with kids.
So if you were caught having sex with a child, what should the punishment be?
You're never going to hear me say that you should harm another person. I'm not necessarily super like pro we need vengeance for whatever, but I would say that there has to be some sort of punishment because we live in a land of laws where judicial systems are involved. However, I would say that my most preferred result would be to keep them away from children. What and in any crime, I would say that we would want to rehabilitate the person the best that we can,
Sure.
while causing the least amount of harm to the
I'll
person.
just give you all of your preferences, every single one of them.
So like the scenario I gave you, mental health treatment facility, and if they're cleared, then they should still be monitored, some kind of probationary thing.
Great. This is awesome, right? Okay, so we've established all the alternative treatments that you want. I get it, understand 100%. So what should happen to a person who has sex with a child? Punishment-wise, anything?
Yeah, I think it's probably fair that they receive some amount of jail time based on what the laws are.
How much jail time would you prescribe as a judge for somebody who fucked a 9-year-old in the ass as a 27-year-old adult?
Well, lost him.
I'm right here. I'm thinking about the question.
Lost him.
Sure. Take your time.
I could probably give you a minimum.
What's a minimum?
I would say probably a minimum of 10 to 15 years. That would be my
10
floor.
years.
But I also think...
How long do you think that the kid who got drilled in the ass at 9 years old
for life,
a 21-year-old or 25-year-old would have to live with that?
Yeah, for the rest of their life, absolutely.
So do you think that the punishment equals the crime? Or?
Well, I'm not really in favor of I want the problem to be solved. I want things to not happen again.
Absolutely. Now we're getting on the same. But
with respect to the autonomy of both people.
What if I offered you a treatment for a person who fucked an 11-year-old boy in the ass at 25 years old that literally had almost 100% success rate of solving the problem, and you could just release them right back into society?
Well, your proposed solution was kind of cutting off my last bit, which would be with respect to the autonomy of the person. So like if somebody gets robbed in a store, that's going to fuck them up for life too.
Well, wait a second. If you attack me in the street and you pull out a pistol and you demand my wallet, have you given up your bodily autonomy?
I would say that I have, in that moment, I have forfeited my autonomy to you.
Gotcha.
If you decide to respond, and if you haven't prevented it, now the situation is over and I'm no longer harming anybody. I should be, for societal purposes, I would say I should be jailed for some amount of time, but I should also be given treatment to rehabilitate me so that I do not repeat it. I still think that my autonomy after the fact should be respected.
What if I could give you a treatment that had an almost 100% success rate of working, and you had given up your autonomy because you had proven that you would be the mother?
I think that there's a misunderstanding. I don't think you give up your autonomy indefinitely when you commit a crime.
Well, what is jail?
it's your freedom to you're losing your freedom to do what you want to do. But
So
I
you're
don't think
giving
they
up
have
your autonomy, right?
your bodily autonomy.
Yeah, right. You're giving up your bodily
No, no,
autonomy.
no, no. No, no, you're not giving up your bodily autonomy by going to jail. You're giving up your freedom to choose what you want to spend your time on. But I don't think that if you go to jail, they have the right to harm you.
No, that makes no sense. Can I walk out of the jail?
No.
I mean, you could.
Okay, so what bodily autonomy do I have exactly when I'm in jail?
I would say that you have the right to not have any harm come to your body.
So okay, but what if the most harm to my body is being in jail?
When I say harm to my body, and I'm speaking of bodily autonomy, I'm speaking strictly physical. That's why I'm saying bodily autonomy. Otherwise, I'd just say autonomy.
Too. I'm speaking
does-
strictly physically too.
How does jail harm your body?
Okay, well, let's say that I like to punch people while I'm in jail, and they throw me in the hole.
Yeah.
Did I give up my bodily autonomy then?
No.
No, I still didn't. Do you think that the hole is good for my bodily autonomy?
I think that your body isn't being physically harmed.
Oh, so it's just okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
when I say bodily autonomy, I'm trying to use the term clear enough, and I guess maybe I should have been more clear. So when I say bodily autonomy, I mean you're physical. All of my rights extend from the fact that I have the right to.
No. Listen, man. I'm granting all of this to you.
Okay.
So if somebody were to chemically castrate you, from your perspective, that would be a violation of your bodily autonomy, right?
Yeah, you'd be taking away functions of my body that I don't want to have taken
away.
away.
What if I was a transgender and decided to chemically castrate myself?
Yeah, it's your choice. So you have the right to your own physical bodily autonomy.
Do I have that choice when I'm in prison?
To chemically castrate yourself?
No, the choice when I'm in prison to have bodily autonomy. Can somebody make me bend over so that they can stick their fingers up my ass to check for drugs?
I would strongly disagree with that. Somebody doing that.
To check for drugs?
By violating your bodily autonomy, yeah.
So what should they do to check for drugs for people who have them stuffed up their anal cavity, man?
Put them in holding until they shit. I'm more concerned about preserving. Hang on, I'm more concerned about preserving somebody's bodily autonomy than I am concerned about drugs getting into prison.
So hang on, stop. So fair enough. So they're in a cell. Can we put a camera on them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a surveillance specialist.
How's that not violating their bodily autonomy? What is your body not able to? What kind of functions is your body impeded? What kind of what's impeded?
It increases stress hormones, which can have a permanent effect.
But this is kind of perfect though, in a way, because what you're saying to me is that bodily autonomy to you just means that anything that disaffects your body from functioning as normal. Is that right?
Yeah, in a way that that you wouldn't want. I think you could go get a piercing. If you want to get your body pierced, it's your choice. It's your choice what happens to your body physically if it's going to impede your body's ability. I would say you're the arbiter of things that happen physically to your body.
Unless you're in jail.
Well, I would say that if you're in jail, nobody should be able to harm your body as well.
Okay, what about putting handcuffs on you? Does that harm your body?
I don't think so. I think it can be put on you to where it hurts you, but I don't think that you should.
What about getting anally raped in jail? Does that harm your body?
I don't think that should happen either, though. I'm not okay with that at all. I'm really upset about the lack of care that prisoners have in jail. I don't like how our prison systems operate at all.
Well, the bizarre thing about this is that anytime I present to you anything that would actually harm your bodily autonomy that you did not consent to, you say that that's not okay.
Yeah, I still
But if
disagree
I
with it.
mention something as specific as handcuffs, which clearly harm your bodily autonomy,
They don't
clearly,
have
there's
to.
no way around it. There's no way around it. Of course they do.
Have you ever been
They
handcuffed?
hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, me
Oh
too.
yeah.
It didn't hurt me.
Okay. So let's just say for a second that you're in a pair of cuffs for the rest of your life. Would that hurt you?
Yeah, almost certainly. I don't think you should be in a pair of cuffs for the rest of your life.
Okay. So how long should you be in a pair of cuffs before your bodily autonomy has been violated?
When it starts to cause damage to your body.
That okay? So
Do
your
I?
only threshold. So okay. In prison, do you get the best diet?
I think that you should get a good diet in prison. Like I said, I don't agree with how
tell
prisoners
me,
are treated.
So, great. Tell me what the diet should be.
Like, you want me to select specific foods? I think.
Yeah, tell me what the diet should be for every single prisoner in prison, so that we don't violate their bodily autonomy. Because if there's anything that we do that damages their body, it's wrong. Yet you still say that we should send people to prison, right? So what is that diet? What does it look like?
I would say it's similar to what people would be eating outside of prison. I think that there should be
Little Caesar's Pizza and McDonald's. That's what their fucking diet should look like.
I said similar.
Okay,
so
well,
hang on. Up in
is.
I think that if people have dietary restrictions, they should be respected. And I mean, as long as
that's great. What should it be? What should it be?
Hang on a minute.
Calorie count.
Hang on a minute. I gotta ask a clarifying question. So in order to think that you have the right to your bodily autonomy, I have to have the information of a nutritionalist to say what prisoners should be fed, instead of saying that I think that a nutritionist should be able to approve of the food that somebody's being given.
For every single prisoner?
Well, yeah. I'm not going to say that like 10 people should just go get fucked and everybody else is taken care of.
So
we're operating on shoulds. We're operating on shoulds. You're giving me my wishes.
We're going to send people to prison. We're going to assign them a nutritionist. The nutritionist is going to say what nutrition they need to have. Now, let's say that person disagrees with the nutritionist. Should we go with what the person says or the nutritionist?
The nutritionist.
Really? So the nutritionist says you only deserve gruel, and then if you decide not to eat
you said
the
deserve.
gruel,
That's not the same as what they should
okay,
have.
the nutritionist just says this is what will sustain you. It's the proper calorie count. It's everything that you need. It tastes bland. It's pretty awful, but this is what you are going to be sustained off of.
Now,
does the prisoner have the right to say no?
So I'm going to ask you a clarifying question here, because I'm a little confused at this approach. Now, are you granting me a magical wand and I can have things be any way I want them to be, or are we asking? My assumption is you're asking me what's the lowest threshold.
Doesn't matter either way.
Oh, then sure. I think that people in prison should be able to have access to healthy food that doesn't taste like shit. I don't think that we need to cause them undue suffering via their food just because they're somewhere which should ideally be rehabilitating them. I don't think that.
Awesome. So let's say that we put all these things into effect. The prisoner refuses to eat, and we know that he's going to die within a couple of days if he doesn't have something to eat. Can we force feed him?
No.
Oh, well, that doesn't sound like bodily autonomy to me.
Well, he's refusing. He's choosing not to eat. We already established that the food is good.
Well, I'm sorry. You're right.
You're offering food.
You're saying You're saying that even though we could save his life by pinning him down, stuffing food in his face, and making sure that he's alive, that you would prefer that he self-suicided because he didn't like the grade of food that you were offering. Is that correct?
I am saying that if somebody chooses to refuse to eat food, I don't think that it's moral to force them to eat food.
What if they choose to
Yeah.
hang themselves in prison?
Or shoot themselves outside of prison.
So I'm not inherently against somebody taking their own
Suicide.
life.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I think that
kinda
if you, well, if I have any right at all, it's over my own body and my autonomy of it. And if I don't think that people should do it. Absolutely not. I think they should seek help.
Why not? Why?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? You have perfect bodily autonomy. If you want to kill yourself,
No, I
kill
think you should have
yourself,
the
right?
right to. Do you understand? There's a difference between having the right to do something and what you should do, right?
Well, that's what I'm asking you: is why
Like-
shouldn't you do it if you have total bodily autonomy?
Well, because I wouldn't like it. It would make me sad. You're asking me why I don't want somebody. Yeah, so you're asking me why I don't want somebody to do it, and I'm giving you an honest answer, which isn't the same as saying what should somebody be allowed to do. Do I think somebody
Why-
should
I
eat Taco Bell every single meal?
well,
No.
I'm
Do I think
sorry.
they should be allowed to?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
hang on. I realize why you're getting upset.
No,
get
I'm
it.
not. I'm not upset. I just think that I'm.
Yeah, but just
What I'm saying
back
is being
up.
mischaracterized
Back
a
up
bit.
with me. Listen. Your son is sitting there. He's 18 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, and he says, "Dad, I refuse to eat. I don't want to eat. I hate eating. It's the worst thing on planet Earth that I can think of doing." And the doctors come to you and they're like, "He's going to expire soon." Okay, you're going to
Yeah.
tell me right now that you wouldn't pin that motherfucker down and force some food down his throat? Go ahead and go lie to me. Go ahead. Lie to me.
Hang on.
Lie to me.
Let me put myself in the position, man.
Yeah, put yourself in the position.
That's a harsh hypothetical, though.
I don't think it's that harsh.
No, I don't have any problem with it.
Especially if I juxtapose this with a female, right? Then it's really not harsh, because there's lots of gals who have body image
Yeah,
issues.
no,
to the point where
my
they
ex-
really won't eat.
My ex-wife ended up in the hospital a lot because she threw up all the time.
Yeah.
So I've been in similar
So the
situations.
thing is, man, is like, but she had bodily autonomy. Let her throw up, right?
Yeah, I did everything I could to dissuade her from doing it. But
Why though? She has bodily autonomy. Why would you dissuade her, you fool?
well, she does have the right to not take my advice. See, this is the thing. I feel like you're getting like when I give you a bottom threshold of like what is the minimum acceptable thing, it seems like you're taking that to mean my preference for what somebody should choose to do.
That's exactly what I think. Otherwise, you wouldn't advocate for it. And you know what? I'll prove it in reverse by allowing you the same amount of Q&A with me and my deontological ethics, and then we can determine which one of us is actually consistent with our worldview. Go ahead.
Can I throw you a 45-second curveball first, Drazi? On
That's up
the
to-
abortion
that's-
thing?
That's up to
So you
Andrew.
You said
Yeah,
consciousness.
sure, of course.
You said consciousness was the threshold there?
Yeah,
Would
first,
you define consciousness as the ability to make calculations on external stimuli?
would I consider consciousness to say it again?
The ability to make calculations on external, on like the real world.
No, I would just say if you can think.
But what is that thinking? Is that making calculations, having like an internal model of an external reality?
I don't think you need to be aware of the external reality yet to be worthy of consciousness. I think that if you have thoughts, that should be preserved. Like you are
Right.
rather that you should have the right to.
But
The
the
autonomy.
thought itself is a model of some. It's an abstraction of something else, right? At its basis, right, we have neurons firing. They're doing calculations in a network.
Sure, if that's what you're saying, then okay.
At 16 days after conception, the neural tube is fully formed, and that is doing calculations very much like neurons do.
If it's
You
so,
could create a neural net or another AI sort of artifice out of these neural tubes. They are
Hey.
doing that at 16 days.
hang on a minute. When you set me that, I'm not really sure what you were saying, and I thought what you were then saying to me that this thing has the capacity for thought.
So I think that was actually something that I was going to bring up if we got the chance to critique or whatever. Is you said it at 5 weeks that's when the fetus starts growing and starts thinking, but we see
That's
that all of these cells that do all of those things start growing a lot earlier. So why is it that you would set it at 5 weeks and not
well,
sometime else at 4 weeks or 3 weeks or
if
something?
I have a
What?
canvas and a bunch of paint sitting in a room, that doesn't mean I have a painting.
Well, sure, but
Just
what?
because
So
the
sure,
materials
but
are
what?
gathered doesn't mean that like the art is
Right.
happening.
That's
Okay,
why I was
sure,
trying to
but what?
define it as a calculation of
But
external world. I
Well,
was trying to
yeah,
really
I think
boil it down.
so like
so.
yeah,
So the
that's the
thing
thing
is, it's
to
like I think
define
it's
it.
fair. I don't want you to feel like inside our server either that you're dogpiled on.
No.
No, this is fine.
That's
Yeah,
not.
sorry. Yeah, I'm not trying to do that either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
that's
can't
not.
remember his
That's
name.
not fair. That's not fair to you, and it's not fair to any. Nobody in our server is that way, by the way. Just so you know.
Honestly, you're
You're
a
more
lot
than
more
welcome
good
to come.
faith here than you are on most streams that I see.
Is it
Well, it's not
possible?
true. It's just what happens is I have a time constraint and I don't like bullshit. And I just want to get through and cut through the bullshit as fast as I possibly can to get to the actual points people are making. And what ends up happening is that I've heard every argument that you can think of 10 times. I host debates, I do debates, right? I know when somebody is being an illogical fucking dumb fuck and they're not making any sense, and I tend to point that out. And it is true that I think it's an aggressive approach, and I get beat up for it. But I just you don't have time, right?
Yeah.
You have to go with the time that we have, and so I always want to make sure that I just get right to the point. Which is why when you see me in singular debates, by the way, this is only I think like the third or fourth panel I've ever done. I don't tend to like them because I don't think you can get very much out of a person in a panel like you can in a one-on-one discussion.
No, they're mostly a shit show.
Yeah, where you can get through, and there's a portion of it that's entertainment and this type of thing. But we have people inside our server from all walks of life, be they transgender, be they xenogender, communist, everything across the board. And it'll always remain that way because we're a debate server. But I do want to kind of drive down and just kind of point out that, hey, look, man, you do realize that bodily autonomy is kind of a silly argument, right? Because I do believe 100%, and I think that you'll even agree with me, that if your 18-year-old son wanted to starve himself to death, you would not be for that. Even if a doctor told you he was not mentally ill, he just wanted to.
I think that I would do what I can to persuade them to seek treatment, but I don't think that I would physically force my child to eat ever.
So you don't have any children then?
I do have a child. I have a 13-year-old, soon to be 14-year-old.
Then yes, you would.
And they live with
yes,
me.
You would. Yes, you would. You would pin that motherfucker down and stuff its face if you needed to make sure that they survive.
I don't think that I don't think I could.
What do you mean? You don't think you could? Why couldn't you?
I don't so I am and I know you don't know me, and I know you may not have any reason to believe me on this, but I do not do things that if I think something, I'm a deontologist. If I think something's wrong, I don't fucking do it. I'm not perfect. I've done things and not understood that the way that I did a thing was against my moral. Correct.
There's no greater duty on planet Earth than your children.
I would say, and I would say that if I think something is wrong to do to somebody,
than your children, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I would say that if I think something is wrong, then I would have to extend that to my child and say that this is absolutely wrong to do it to my child as well.
Okay, fair enough. So let me try it this way.
I am
Your 18 and a half year old son
mhm.
is sitting on the couch, well, laying on the couch. He's 1 day from expiration if he doesn't get any food. And you're in a state where you can you can starve yourself to death as a means of self-suicide if you choose to. The doctor comes in and says, look, the only thing that's going to save your son's life is to grab this food when I'm not here and literally force feed him. You're telling me that you wouldn't do that? Really?
If they're not mental, you said that they are cleared of mental illness.
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Volition.
How could I possibly violate my child? If I think the most important right that we have as a human being is our own bodily autonomy, and you think that I would violate my child's bodily autonomy to?
I can only hope that you would.
I couldn't. I couldn't do it.
Why couldn't you? You could.
It would be a tragedy.
The tragedy would be if you didn't do it.
I think
think about it. Like your friend is sitting there and he's conflicted. He's like, if I just shove this gruel in his face, I just know in my gut that he'll be okay if he just makes it through this thing, you know? And I'm not just gonna let him kill himself because he can. And you're his advisor. And you're telling me that you're gonna tell your friend, nah, man, like bodily autonomy is the thing. Just like let him die.
When I was 13 years old, my friend was suicidal. He talked to me about it. I did my very best to talk them out of it. I did not do anything to stop them. I did not do anything to stop them.
You don't think that that's sick?
I can't. I can't violate somebody's right. I had another.
He's got the gun. Hang on, he's got the gun in his hand, and he puts it up to his head, and you have like a good solid 30 seconds where you can grab it out of his hand. And you wouldn't do it? You just let him blow his brains out?
If taking something out of somebody's hand, I don't think is violating their bodily autonomy.
But yeah, it is, because his body, he wants to kill himself, and he tells you, he says specifically, "I'm going to kill myself. I'm tired of being alive." And he has the gun right to his head, and he's about to pull the trigger. That's what his body wants. Why would you stop him?
Hang on.
He eats a bunch of pills. Would you call the doctor? And if he says I want to end this, goodbye. I just took a bunch of pills. Would you call the?
So
would you call the ambulance?
If I am under if my best understanding is that the person that I'm dealing with is mentally ill, this changes something, because I would say, okay, then.
Okay, they're not mentally ill.
Okay,
they just
so
are tired of being. Well, let's say they're just a genius, right? Like I've met a guy. I'm going to tell you.
Oh yeah.
Met a guy in my life who was so smart. He literally came to me one day and he's like, "Andy, listen, there's nothing worth living for. I'm too smart. I'm smarter than everybody else, and I just don't want to be alive anymore."
Yeah, I think if the suffering of being alive is worse than the suffering of dying, then yeah, I say you have every right to take your life. I've always held that position as far back as I can remember.
Story. Let me tell you the other half of that story.
Mm-hmm.
I told him he was a fucking idiot, and that I was going to punch his lights out if he ever said something like that again, and that if he needed to talk, give me a call. It was fleeting. Okay, it was roughly a year of me talking with him. Okay, but he essentially was like, I was in a bad place, this and that, blah blah blah. But he went to a psychologist, and they told him that he was mentally fit. You know what I mean?
I think that what you did is fine. You didn't violate their autonomy. You threatened to, but you didn't
I would
do it.
I would have, and I want you to tell me that it would have been immoral for me if he had the gun to his head and he's like, "I'm going to blow my brains out right now." Tell me it's immoral for me to have stopped it.
I would have said that you should have chosen a better way. I had a friend call me 3 years ago and say that he had his gun loaded and that he went through a bad breakup. He was drunk,
and you were like,
and he was going to kill himself.
Bro.
And so what I said is, hey, don't do anything. I'm going to come over. And I got out of bed, and I went over, and I talked to him. I extended him compassion, and he did not kill himself.
But what
And I'm
about his
super glad I
bodily
did.
autonomy?
I didn't violate it. I talked to him.
But Elder,
But
I want.
if you had shown up and he had the gun right to his head, and he said, "This is it, I'm done," would you have tried to stop him?
I can't tell you. If I did do it, then it would have been a tragedy too. If,
Elder, I was
if in that
curious about
moment
something.
I abdicated,
What
if in the,
tragedy? What tragedy, you fucking lunatic? What tragedy could there
okay,
possibly
when
have
when I
been?
say
Stopping
tragedy,
this guy from blowing his fucking
hang on.
brains out.
Do you know what
Are
a
you insane?
do you know what a
understand?
deontological tragedy
From my
is?
perspective, you sound like a fucking insane person.
Okay,
Wait,
do you,
Elder.
hey,
Elder,
wait,
I was curious about something. Okay, because you were
sure.
talking about what Andrew had said earlier about chemical castration.
Uh-huh.
So let's say, for instance, that it was like Andrew said. Okay, it was 100% proven that chemical castration could prevent sexual assault of minors. Okay. Now, if it was a medical recommendation that this would prevent molestation, and if that person was released into the public, wouldn't the autonomy of the potential victims be preferenced over his autonomy? Because let's say that the person said no, they don't want to be surgically castrated, but if they're not, there's a chance that they can molest somebody. So
Yeah,
in that particular example, whose autonomy would get preference? The
I don't
potential victims,
I don't
or
believe in prevent, like I wouldn't believe that.
so just so because I don't want to, like, dogpile or anything, but
Yeah,
just
I would say the right to
for
bodily autonomy supersedes the potential for harm.
okay, so you would say that even though there was a certainty that the molestations could be
Wait. Which
prevented.
part of your deontological ethics uh, uh, take harm into consideration? That's bizarre.
Take potential harm?
Yeah.
I don't believe that is a factor in comparison to, like, if we have to violate somebody's bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
No.
Where's the
So
deontology here? This all sounds utilitarian to me. This
wait,
all sounds like outcomes are what matter to you.
no, it sounded like the outcomes are what matter to Alteros. Maybe you got who was speaking confused.
No. It's not the outcomes that matter to Ultros. He's using deontological ethics. He's saying it's always wrong to do X. So I'm asking you, when is it always wrong to do X?
Wait, I'm confused. I think I've stood my ground and bit every bullet you've thrown at me.
Well, so in your worldview, the only time it's wrong to do X is when you violate a person's personal autonomy?
Yeah, if somebody is currently violating somebody else's personal autonomy, theirs is forfeit while the action is taking place.
Well, then you're fucked. And I won't explain why. I'll just give it back to Ultros. I'm sorry.
I understand. Oh, hang on, though. I didn't get to finish what I was saying prior. When I say something is a tragedy, I'm talking about a deontological tragedy where you are given two choices, and that by either acting or
tragedy.
I'm trying to explain. Okay, it is something, and I'm going to explain it to you. A deontological tragedy is when you have a duty to do something, and no matter what you do, you will violate your duty one way or the other. This is what would be considered.
Possible.
Well,
That's not possible.
Sure. Let's say if you have a duty to never, I'm just going to create a hypothetical, and it's not something that I hold.
No, that's fair.
But if you have a deontological duty to save somebody's life whenever possible, but you also have a deontological duty to never cause harm to somebody, and the only way that you could possibly stop somebody from killing another person is by killing that person, by killing the person who's going to kill the other person, I would say it's a tragedy. An action must be taken, an action that does violate your duties, but one must be taken because no matter what you do, the outcome will go against the principled position. This is a tragedy.
Fair enough. So let's explore that. Is there an order to duty?
So wait, what is that called? Yeah, like if there's an order to duty, then you're basically moving into utilitarian.
And all no, you're not. You're not. How could you possibly be moving into utilitarianism
Well,
by saying there's an order to duty? That makes no sense on its face. What are you
then
talking about?
well then maybe I'm confused about what you're saying, because in my mind,
Okay,
if
is
you
there an order to duty?
like you're saying, is there like a priority list?
Yes, there's always an order to duty. Yes.
I would say that if something is wrong, then it's always wrong. That you should
Okay,
always
but
do
what about
what
the
you're supposed to
order
do.
to? Okay, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking about the order to duty, meaning some duties take precedent over others. Yes.
I need to ask a clarifying question on that then.
Sure. Hmm.
If you're saying that some duties take priority over others, are you
Hmm.
suggesting that it would be okay to abdicate one duty in favor of another?
If the precedent of the duty that's above it takes precedent, yes. An example of this would be, let's say you're in the military and you have a duty to challenge everybody who comes to a post that you're at.
Uh-huh.
However, if they happen to be a general or above, your duty then is to just salute them and let them pass.
You're giving
The
me
duty
nightmares
that
if you
takes
can't.
the duty that takes precedent is to salute the general as he passes rather than to challenge him. There's always a order to duty.
Oh, then I
That's
would
the
just
one thing
say,
about deontological ethics that's so great that utilitarianism does not have. Utilitarianism has no order to outcome.
then I
This
think
is why deontology is superior.
I so if the way you describe it is you're describing two different duties, but to me that would just be one duty. The duty would be to check everybody who isn't a general or above before they
Hmm.
pass, and that's just one duty.
Well, but which one takes
That's the
precedent?
same. It's the same duty. You check everyone who isn't one of these people to pass. I would say if you have to prioritize your duties, then you're probably just framing what your duty is incorrectly.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll give you a different example, and I'll still use the military to do it. Okay. So let's say you have these two duties. The first one is if you are about to be captured, you must kill yourself. However, if you are about to be captured and there's only one enemy troop and you're down to your last bullet, in both these scenarios, you are to shoot the enemy troop. You're unsure of how many enemy troops are about to invade your bunker, and you only see one. Okay?
Uh
So if you were to read off your list,
huh.
the first precedent is if it's only one enemy troop, you shoot him.
Okay.
If there's multiple, you shoot yourself. But the priority is that you must shoot yourself if you think that there's more than one. Which duty takes precedent?
That still just sounds like the same duty to me. It just depended on
What
how many I think there are.
though. It's not. It's
Then maybe I'm
not the
misunderstanding.
same duty. It's not the same. You have a precedent, an order of operations, like you do with everything in life. The order of operations is if X happens, you do X. If X does not happen, you do X. However, there is a subjective component to it. The subjective component is you don't know for sure, so you have to use your best judgment. So you'd have to default to the greater duty, yes.
I I think
I just want
that,
to. Oh, sorry, my bad.
so so if it's just based on what I think, then I would do whichever one I think is the likely outcome.
Oh,
If I only see
I'll do the. No, it's not likely outcome. It's
well,
which
but you said I have
which
to use
of
my
these things.
subjectivity to determine.
Well, it is. It is subjective, but the outcome from your perspective is not. You don't care about the outcome. You're just looking at what the duty is.
Yeah, if
So
if
which
there's only
one?
one guy and I think that there aren't any more, then I shoot him. If there's one guy, but I think that there's more, then I shoot myself. That seems
So what
pretty
if you're not
straightforward.
sure? So what if you're not sure?
If I'm not sure that there's another one. And those are my only two directives?
Those are your two directives for this particular situation. What if you're not sure? So this is why you have the order of
Yeah,
operations.
then I would
then you would default to the greater duty, right?
I would say that if my duties aren't outlined in a clear
I
enough
just
way,
outlined them.
yeah, but what I'm saying is if my duties aren't outlined enough or well enough to where I'm in a situation where I don't have a clear idea of which one is correct, then I would have to assess the
Default,
situation.
yeah, and default to the greater duty, right?
No, I would default to what I think the likely outcome is in that situation. Or like what
Well,
sorry,
that would be
I would
utilitarian.
hang on.
not
Yeah, I know.
deontology.
I was before I was even done speaking, I realized I said something that's not indicative of what I think here. I would assess the situation, and I would respond to what I thought was happening.
With the
If
greater
I
duty, right? With the greater duty, you can just say it. It's okay. Like there's this is how duty works. You
But-
always have a precedent.
you didn't even tell
Right,
me which one
or-
was the greater duty either.
Okay, well the greater duty in this particular case is to shoot the person before you kill yourself if you only think there's one.
Okay, sure. If I only think there's one, then I shoot them. If I don't know, then I would say that my duty then would be to do my best to find out before taking the action.
Okay, but you don't know. And you can't find out.
Yeah, you'd have seconds to react in this scenario, right?
Yeah, then I would probably just react without a lot of thought, and I would call that a tragedy.
You wouldn't just defer to your duty?
I don't know what I would. I would probably just act on instinct and call it a tragedy. Because I
Okay,
didn't know which.
so-
I didn't
Okay,
know. I have
so-
enough
so
information.
These things have been drilled into you for like 20 years. Okay, 20 years, your duty has. It's just been feed into you.
Mm-hmm.
Which thing would you default to? It's not reactionary now, right? You have a second to think. Which thing do you do? Would you
If-
go with the precedent of the greater duty, or would you go with the lower duty?
I don't agree with the framing of the greater and lower duty, because otherwise it would be like if one of them is being framed right now as the greater duty, then I would say that the rule is that if I don't have enough information, that I should do X.
Defer to the greater duty.
If you want
But
to
if
call
you
it the
have
greater
one
duty, that's
duty-
fine.
In your scenario,
Drazi, and the
Andrew-
one duty is to always do your duty and to default to the one duty Andrew was saying, and if not, then to kill yourself before being captured, right? You could put it all into one duty and it still wouldn't matter. The hierarchy is just built into that one.
Andrew, which one is the higher
Yeah.
duty in your example?
In
Maybe
this
you could-
particular case, it would be to shoot the enemy soldier.
Yeah,
If
then
you
I would.
didn't know for sure
Okay,
that there
that
was
was my thought
more.
as well.
Yeah, then
if
I
there
would
was
say.
more enemy soldiers.
Then I would say, just like before, that it's an improper framing of how the duties work. I would say that the duty then is.
But I mean, how is it improperly framed?
Well, I'm trying to explain it. I would say the correct framing of your duty is that if you're going to be captured, kill yourself. If you're unsure if you're going to be captured, always kill them to avoid capture. That would be
Okay,
that
which
would be
one's
the duty.
higher duty.
Right. The question is, which one is the higher duty? Yeah.
Well, I think the
That's what
duty
we're
that I
trying to
just laid
determine.
out, I just laid out in one duty, like how to
But you
approach
embedded
that.
a hierarchy within that duty.
No.
Obviously, the higher duty is to kill yourself.
So this is like, I guess if that's how you want to frame your deontological
No, I don't think it's
duties,
framing.
that's
I don't think it's framing. All
That's-
duty is hierarchical. It always goes down a list. All duties do that. You have higher duties and lower duties.
I would
Maybe
say
maybe a fairer example would be, so I worked with right, like communications equipment.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you have a bullet with you had two duties. One is there's a hole in your crypto equipment. That hole is to put your gun in and fire it, shoot it. You have one bullet. You can either shoot that. You have a duty to not let this equipment get captured. You have a gun with one bullet. You can shoot your comm equipment, or if you have a duty to, if someone's attacking you, kill that one. That one. The same thing. Which one takes more precedent?
What kind of a shitty gun only has one bullet?
Well, I'm just saying. Yeah, I mean, I'm just using that as the example. You have one bullet.
Okay.
Well, no,
that
listen,
way
the
you're
Army-
not killing
the
yourself,
Army-
right?
Hey man,
Yeah.
the
The
Army
most important
thinks
thing
of
is that
everything.
crypto. The most important thing
I'm
is
telling
that
you
crypto,
right now,
okay?
the
You-
Army thinks of fucking everything. The Army will tell you what to do when you have one bullet left in your gun.
Yeah.
Not
So
kidding.
the scenario that you
And
just
it
laid
will
out
give
for
you
me.
a hierarchy of duties for
Okay.
what you do with that bullet.
Yeah, like
Yeah, in
I'm
my
saying.
scenario, it's definitely shoot the crypto, but every time. But
Hang on.
know.
So what you're saying to me, yeah, it just seems like what you call a hierarchy is the proper framing of what your duty is then. I
there's
think we're just
two-
using different.
no. There's two duties. We're just trying to ask which one would be the higher duty, and then that's the question.
No, I understand what you're
Mhm.
saying, but when I frame a principle, or when I frame my duty, I would frame it in a way that encompasses the most. If you want to call that listing it as a hierarchy, because I have contingencies for what to do if, like, an if then into it, I would just say that I'm very good at framing what my duty is ahead of time.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But I
Okay,
think
do you
that's
have
what
a
we're both
duty-
saying.
Do you have a duty to kill on behalf of your family if they're being threatened?
Do I have a duty to kill them on behalf?
On behalf of your family if they're being threatened.
You better say
Physically,
yes
right
to this.
then, in the spot. A man breaks into your house with a gun. Do you have a duty to protect your family and kill that man?
Or do you have a duty to make him coffee?
Where's the hierarchy?
Lou might if they're trans.
I would say that if my family, and this is in like 99.9% of situations, if my family does defer their bodily autonomy to me, when it comes to protection, because they're not able to do it themselves and they defer to me, and this is almost always the case when you're the head of a
Right.
household, I would say yes, I have a duty to act on the behalf of their autonomy to shoot the person who has now forfeit their autonomy by breaking into my house and threatening them.
Great. Do you have a duty to protect human life?
Broadly speaking,
Yeah. Broadly
um,
speaking.
that really depends on the context here. Should I be going on a plane right now to stop somebody from starving? I don't think so.
Why not?
I think that I have a duty to reduce suffering when it's reasonable.
Reduce suffering.
So would that
Ah.
mean then that you would be in favor of chemical castration since it would reduce harm then?
No,
No.
I would consider that unreasonable because it violates another person's autonomy.
What if the person in question was a repeat offender? Like, let's say they got rehabilitated.
Well,
they got.
well-
Sorry, yeah.
one
I've
second.
already offered a solution to that doesn't.
Can you violate the bodily autonomy of someone that's shoplifting?
No. I would
No.
revert this back to is it okay to violate somebody's bodily autonomy for financial reasons?
So you can't
You
stop
don't think that this
shoplifting?
sounds? You don't think that this sounds just like a little bit stupid, like a
So-
little
so-
bit ridiculous?
You're literally telling me you can't stop a shoplifter.
Not in that way. I think that you have the right to call the authorities and say somebody
And
is
then they can
shoplifting.
stop the
The authorities-
shoplifter.
The authorities will not get there on time. So do you have the right to stop that shoplifter until the authorities arrive?
Like physically stop them?
Yes,
Yeah.
violate their
No.
bodily autonomy.
No.
Restrain them. Tackle them, hold them on the ground until the police arrive.
Not if it's not mine, then I would say no.
Okay, guy comes in your
Great.
house. He's holding your big screen. Can you shoot him?
Yes. I would
Okay,
say
well, here's
that
an
the
easier
things.
one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you you're down to your last bit of food. Somebody comes in to steal it,
Yeah.
and by him stealing it, your son will starve to death. Can you
Now,
stop him?
yeah, I would say that the things that I have used my bodily autonomy for, like I've worked for 20 years, right? I have eroded parts of my body in exchange for things. I would consider them an extension of my bodily autonomy.
So you can shoot somebody for stealing your
but-
TV, but you can't stop them from stealing from your store.
Well, it wasn't my store in this scenario, but hang on though. I would also say though that that's the maximum end. If you can't, I would say that you do have a duty to reduce their autonomy as little as possible, but it can extend up to killing them.
Holy
What-
God! What? It's like, have you ever thought about this shit, man?
Yeah.
What determines that?
I'm being, like, I want to stop everyone for a second. I really want to ask.
Do you think I'm being
But
dishonest?
I just want to know. Well, no, I don't necessarily think you're being dishonest.
Okay.
I can't understand how a thinking man can come to these absurd conclusions. Look,
Maybe
if
I've just
someone
thought about it
breaks
a
into
lot
your
more than other
house-
people have.
If somebody breaks into your fucking house and you shoot them in the face, what's the problem? Honestly, what's the problem?
Well, if somebody's breaking into my house, I would say that in all likely scenarios, it's not on me to assess the situation. I would say that they have forfeit their autonomy in most situations there.
I use the big screen TV example because it takes two hands to hold a big screen TV.
Yeah, I was extending
extending
charitability to you when you said that, in that I'm understanding that they're just there for the TV, right?
Yeah, if you're holding a big screen.
So, like, I
mean,
have
you
all
can't
this
do
information.
anything except hold it.
Yeah, I would say that by entering my home.
But Andrew's
and almost-
comment of where did you get this, though, Drazi? Because earlier I was like, yeah, what fucking book? This is what I was thinking. What fucking book did he read to convince himself into this crazy, this crazy structure? That's where my mind went. Like,
I didn't get it from any specific book. I do read a lot of philosophy. I do engage with a lot of material about ethics, and I make my own determination
Are you
based
an
on how I
objectivist,
think
by
about
the way?
things. Am I a what?
Objectivist, by the way.
An objectivist. What do you mean when you say objectivist? I just want to understand.
That's exactly what an objectivist would say.
That's kind of funny.
Okay, well, I guess specifically, I
There's
guess
some kind of external object that you would measure your morality by.
An external object by which I would say that again?
Ayn Rand.
An external object by which you would measure your morality by. So, for instance, if your objective morality would be rooted around getting people off the earth, as in, like, we become a star-faring race, then you would measure all your morality by achieving that objective.
No. I think that I
So you're
take
not-
other things into account. I just think that the most fundamental and inalienable right that people have would be the right to bodily autonomy. I think
So you're
that's
not
the
Okay, so your objective is bodily autonomy.
Yeah, but I do also think that when you threaten another's bodily autonomy, you forfeit your own while you are threatening it.
Okay, how much
But
threat?
only while And the thing is
Correct.
that's my whole point. Is like recidivism rate. If the recidivism rate was 99%, you still are threatening other people's bodily
It,
autonomy, aren't you?
yeah, and I did offer a solution to this that is not chemical castration that I think you would agree is quite good
What's
at preventing it from happening.
but the chemical
Well, but
castration would
it's not perfect like chemical castration though, right?
yeah.
Sure, I'm weighing the person's bodily autonomy against this, and I'm coming up with a solution that respects it while also doing a very good job at preventing.
Why should I respect it? Why is
What
it
was
my
the
duty to
solution?
respect their bodily autonomy if they're
I'm
going
not.
to have a 99% recidivism rate? Why should I respect it?
Well, for starters, that isn't what the case is in almost any
But let's
situation.
just say
However,
it was. Let's
sure,
just say
sure.
it
Like I
was.
said, however, even granting you that,
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that I have said, like in the coma situation, if there's even if there's any chance at all that we can still respect somebody's bodily autonomy, we are to be compelled to find a solution that does respect it still. And
Based on what?
the the same moral framework I've been operating on under for this entire conversation.
It's just preference, right?
Right, in which we've already agreed and you've granted me. Unless you're going to like stop granting it to me now, at this point in the conversation, I guess we can go back over some of that stuff.
So
But
then you have no bitch with me then when I argue with Mr. Girl about this, because if we're really just talking about preference, you can't
which
really say my preference is wrong based on anything other than your preference.
I'm sorry, Elder. Just for clarification, because we got a little bit sidetracked. So, are you or are you not the objectivist?
No,
like, do
you're
I
not.
believe in objective morality? Is that what you're asking me? Because it seems like an objectivist standpoint would say that like this is like you have one goal in all things, like, and that's all that matters. I wouldn't say that that's all that matters to me. I do
Okay, so
definitely
no
have.
then.
Yeah, I would just say
So
that.
no.
Yeah, I would say that. So the reason why
Would
bodily
you say
autonomy
you have
is
a
so.
hierarchy of mattering?
I would say.
Look, it is. Look, it's fair. Like, it's a pile on, and we
It
really
is.
try our hardest not to do the pile on. It's just
Get,
that
get Andrew Drazi, you know? We'll get off you.
Well,
look,
all I'm trying to say is that
not,
if
I mean, it's not fair. We're trying to be fair. It's just that, like, look, some of the things that you say, you can respect other people on having vehement disagreement because it just kind of sounds a little bit absurd, right?
sure. And I think that the idea of chemically castrating somebody when there are other options also sounds absurd.
Well, I don't think that you do. I think that if it was your son who was raped horribly, and I came to you and said, "Look, we can rehabilitate this man with a 99% success rate, and we're going to chemically castrate him," and you really weighed those options in your hand, that you would go with chemical castration.
So,
If you thought that it would really be 99% effective, that, I think everybody probably would do that, man.
if you, I'm not for one, I'm not a vengeance-seeking person.
It's not
However,
vengeance.
if you came to
This
me,
is not. This has nothing to do with
okay,
vengeance. It's
so
a cure.
I'm
Vengeance
gonna
would be
I'm
the
gonna
best
give you.
solution.
To me, it feels like vengeance. But if you came to me right after it happened, of course, it's very possible that I would not be in the same state of mind I would be in any other situation, and I would be
But what
vengeful,
about
and
more
I'd say, yeah,
bodily
fuck that guy.
autonomy?
Yeah,
Well, what about
hang
more
on,
bodily autonomy?
hang on. I am a person, and I am subject to my emotions overriding what I know to be true. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. And if I did make that choice because I was embroiled in emotions, I would say that I had made a mistake.
Okay, so I give you 20 days to think about it. I still think that you would say
No way.
if there was 99% that he would never offend again, and that he could be released right back into the public. Like, let's say that this was something that he couldn't help, right? Unless he had this chemical castration, and then all the impulse went away. For 99% of people, why wouldn't you say okay?
Because I don't think it's right.
But but you understand that defies that literally
It
defies
defies the way
logic.
that you no, it defies the way that you would feel in that situation. I
I
think
don't
that
think
we have
it
I think
just
we have
defies the
different
way I would
values.
feel. I think it defies the way you would feel.
It
I think you
doesn't.
would be like, look, I can have my cake and eat it too, right? Like, this guy did this horrible thing, but he can be rehabilitated. He couldn't help it, but we have this cure. Let's just say it was 100% effective. Would you do it then?
No.
Even if you raped your kid?
Yeah. My so
And they're like, this is 100% effective?
hang on a
If
minute.
we
The
give
only
him this
the only
chemical
reason you're
castration, he'll never rape another child again, he'd go right back into society? That wouldn't be the preference?
if they chose that, sure. But the reason why you're using my kid is because you want to engage with my emotional reaction. And I
So
did
your fucking
concede to
neighbor's
you.
kid. Your neighbor's kid who you've never met ever once, and somehow you're the judge, and they're like, look, there's a 100% success rate with this. Okay?
No.
Anybody who gets chemically castrated will never molest another child, and he never has to face prison.
No.
Right? He couldn't help it. It's inside of him. He couldn't help it. But this will cure it forever. And you still say no?
Yeah.
So what should happen as the preference?
I told you this. And I'm not trying to say like you should remember everything that I said, but I am in favor of therapeutic treatments, consensual medication. And if they don't want to do that, then they are in some kind of facility until they're cleared, that that there is no longer believed to be a threat of it reoccurring.
Fair enough.
And
So
if they wanna
escape and they rape another child, is that on your head? If you had the option to chemically castrate them and it was 100% effective?
some people might feel that way, but I don't think so.
Well, what about you?
I would say it's on the head of the people who decided that he was good to go.
Well,
Yeah,
you're the decider.
I'm the decider?
Yeah, you're the judge.
Oh, so if no.
You were given these two options, and the option one was 100% effective. They'll never offend again. All we have to do is chemically castrate them. For option two, we go with your let's just be like super charitable and 89.5% effective. Use alternative methods like you're stating. And then this person, while they're getting this treatment, escapes and goes and rapes another fucking kid. Is that your fault?
No. If I do my due diligence in what I think is correct, so like if I'm the doctor at the facility and I clear him to go because I truly believe that he's no longer going to do these sorts of things, and then he does it again, I did my due diligence, I performed my duty, and whatever happens after that, I'm not a consequentialist. When I play poker, I don't see the river after I fold and go, "Fuck! I should have called." That's never how I think.
So prescribing mercury for syphilis patients, that wouldn't have been your fault if you prescribed it?
If everything I understood led me to believe that it was the correct thing to do, then yeah, I did the right thing. Otherwise, we're consequentialists, and I think consequentialism is madness.
That's a silly
you're talking.
consequentialism.
Yeah, you're basically arguing for consequentialism here. You're saying that if the thing that I do, yeah, I'm not.
Well, that's a really bad argument against it. The idea
terrible.
Like, that
terrible
you
argument
don't know
against
the
it.
consequences in advance, therefore you shouldn't be a consequentialist. That's a silly.
Wait, say that again.
The idea that you don't know the consequences in advance, therefore you shouldn't be a consequentialist, is just a silly argument. Like, you don't know if we live in the Matrix or whatever, right? So like, how do you know if it's wrong to shoot somebody with a gun? think it's just a bad argument.
Not being
You don't have to
charitable,
go
though,
there.
to be fair. That's not really being charitable, though, to be fair. Like, that's. I mean, we could go for more grounded examples, possibly. Like something
No,
more.
he contradicted himself a minute ago.
How?
Everything outside of like archaic ethics is going to be like effectively just different forms of consequentialism. Even deontology will still be like fundamentally based on the consequence of an action. Like you can't define an action's nature.
There
outside
is
of the consequence.
overlap. I agree
Yeah.
that there's overlap, but you know,
I don't think the correctness or incorrectness, moral or immorality of my actions is dependent on what is going to happen. It's based on my understanding of what I think is going to happen.
That would be
yeah,
consequentialism. So
that would be
Yeah.
it's like a bad
consequentialism.
No, it's
consequentialist.
no, consequentialism is
gentlemen,
the morality of an action
I
is
have
decided by
to-
what happens, not what you think is
My
going
wife-
to happen.
It's decided in relation to
My wife is
consequences,
yelling at me.
which
She's
is
saying
what-
there's going to be no cookies for me because it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm still they're arguing in Discord.
I might be in that
Alright,
same
well,
boat.
Longer than I had
Good
expected.
night.
But I would like to thank you for coming into the Discord. I hope you stick around, and you know, we'll talk more, man. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Can I ask you one question
Yeah,
before you go? Do you
Yeah.
think I was good faith and honest during this the entire time?
I do. But just like with Mr. Girl,
I know you think I'm crazy.
this is no. It's not. It's not crazy. It's just that I get very frustrated with people who go, well, yes, my worldview is inconsistent, but at least I'm honest. That's not really honest. Honesty is saying my worldview is inconsistent, so I'm going to change it. That's honest.
Well,
That's how I see honesty. I see honesty as being self-evaluation constantly. Like, look, Sent down there, he's a lib and a half. There's several. I can't tell you how many fucking libs we have on constantly that I engage with in good faith to try to figure out if my worldview is consistent. And if it's not, I literally will sit down and be like, okay, this is wrong. What am I doing wrong? And we'll go back and forth until I figure it out. That, to me, is honesty. What's dishonest is when somebody's like, well, but this is what I think, and I was honest about what I think, so isn't that honesty? No, it's not honesty.
well,
Honesty is being willing to be self-reflective enough to change your opinion if it's so fucking inconsistent that it doesn't make sense. That's honesty.
Sure. However, I don't agree when I was being told that I was being inconsistent. I'm not understanding it to be. Maybe we can pick this up another time. I know you gotta go. I gotta be to work at 9 myself. But this was a lot more pleasant and
Well, I
calm
mean,
than
like,
I had
what would I
expected.
have to do to convince you? With all the different contradictions we were able to pull out of you tonight, like, what could I possibly do to convince you to be honest enough, be
I-
self-reflective enough to even understand that the things that you're saying don't make sense? What could I do? Tell me, and I'll do those things. I just need to know what they are. How
So-
can I present this to you? What do you need before you'll change your view?
So I do change my views all the time, but I didn't. Maybe I misunderstood something, but I wasn't understanding. It could be a miscommunication then, but I'm not. I wasn't
Brother,
at any
you
point
told
not
me that you
understanding.
would let your child starve to death before you stuffed his mouth with food.
What's that
Come
inconsistent
on.
with? What's that inconsistent with?
It's not. It's inconsistent with the reality of how a parent would actually deal with their kid. You know, like
Okay.
it
So I'm
is.
not actually being inconsistent. It's just that you don't believe me.
No, well, that is inconsistent.
So
But inconsistence is a lack of belief
It
based on
is-
what you're saying. Like, look, I'll be honest enough to tell you that I've always been conflicted on the question on abortion of if you should give moral consideration to an egg that's been fertilized, even logically knowing that you should, right? So that's a problem, and one that I continuously try to reconcile. And I'm honest enough to say that's a problem in my personal worldview.
I think it's a tough one.
Where my intuition does not jive with what I logically know is true. And I'm willing to admit that that's true, right? All I'm asking for you, that's actual honesty. Where you say there's something that's logically going on. I know it's logical, and I still intuitively disagree with it, and I don't know why, and I haven't gotten a great answer for it just yet. But I know it's wrong. That's honesty. You
So
telling me that you would let your fucking kid die before you give him a bite to eat, or force him to have a bite to eat in order to have his personal autonomy, you're lying to me, brother.
okay,
I'm
so
sorry,
then
you're lying to me.
hang on. Then I think that there is a miscommunication. I tried to caveat it enough to where I didn't think that I had to reiterate it. That I am fully a person with emotions, and sometimes I don't always act perfectly with my principles. But when I do, I think that I made a mistake. I think that it was, and if I'm put in a position where I have two wrong choices and I have to make one, that it's a tragedy. It is very possible that I end up force feeding my child, because I no
But the
longer care
fact
in
that
the
you
moment.
think it's a tragedy is the inconsistency.
Right.
You don't
If
think
you
it's a
make
tragedy that
if
you're
you
in a
make a
position where
Yeah.
you
Why don't
if
you
you
understand what I'm saying to you? The
oh,
fact that you think that force feeding your kid who's about to die if they don't have a bite to eat in regards to their personal autonomy, you think the tragedy is that you had to force feed them to eat.
I
That's
think
the insane
the,
part to me.
so I think that you also, if you were in that position where your child wouldn't eat, and that's what you had to do, I think that you would also feel like it was tragic that that was the
The
scenario that you're put
tragic
in.
part would be I would agree to one degree. I would say that the tragic part was that it ever got so far that I had to force feed them. I
Yeah,
would never say the tragic part was that I force fed them. Do you
I would.
understand?
I would also say what we never talked about what led up to that. You forced me into the situation when we're already here. Of course, if this was going on and I would be doing everything in my power to be talking to therapists. I'd be trying to get them to go. I would be doing everything to prevent that from happening. I love my
Yeah,
child.
but so you have to reconcile that with this bizarre personal autonomy thing that you came up with, right?
What's the
And
personal
the
autonomy definition?
tragedy to you is that you violated the personal autonomy, not
No, so the tragedy always has to involve two things. The tragedy is that either my child dies, um, or which I would say that I also have a duty to prevent. But my oh shoot. Um, so the tragedy is that I'm stuck between two choices: my duty to protect my child from harm, and because their autonomy is deferred onto the protection of their autonomy is deferred onto me, and the the other option being that I have to violate their autonomy. But I do think that oh shit.
The fucking panel that shitty said, and he just like pretended not to say it. It's like
yeah.
I can't imagine the guy doesn't fucking remember.
I
Fucking
didn't get to see the
frustrating.
whole thing.
It's just frustrating.
Is
What's
this
that?
that cozy guy?
He's the
That'd be a
pedo
weird way
guy.
to frame it.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
it's not an
I
actual
understand
pedophile.
that he wants to be a conversationalist. It's like once the shit comes out of your mouth, you have to fucking just. You know what I mean?
No.
It just frustrates me.
But you were asking questions in a way that was like, it hurt his feelings, so kind of your fault.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
it is.
RPG fucking bombed you, Andrew.
But god damn it,
Yeah,
that was
he
so
did.
fucking annoying.
Yeah, that was yeah, I don't know what that was about.
And then Mr. Girl wanted to like fucking grandstand about it for like ages.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
that
move
was
the fuck on.
ridiculous too.
Filibuster.
He knew what he knew what he was doing though.
Yeah, he
was
couldn't
trying to
defend any
milk
of his
it.
fucking positions.
He
so
was
he
trying
was
to milk
fucking
it.
virtue signal.
Climb.
You know, Andrew, you're gonna make lots of enemies if you continue doing this.
I think Andrew's
And-
okay
but
with
the
that.
Thing is,
I want to talk about the death
my
penalty.
favorite part though about the RPG bomb is that oh, he's trolling and that's bad, but when I troll Bosch, that's good. That fucking
Exactly.
pisses me off
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So
Aren't you
I
worried though that
didn't.
one of these guys might dox you though?
Andrew's
Yeah.
He's
Well, that's his point. That's his point, right? Is he's like, if you put your name out there and then someone uses your name, you're being doxxed, right? It's the fucking stupidest shit I ever heard in my fucking life. But yeah, I don't know, man. I, I do agree that RPG bombed the panel, but I didn't fucking know he was gonna do that. He just texted me and was like, "Hey, I want to hop on this panel with you." And I was like, "Sure." I didn't fucking know the guy was gonna do that bullshit.
Really?
How do I fucking engage with this without throwing my friend under the bus? You know, that was some bullshit. But whatever, is what it is. Can't do anything about
If
it
the
now.
second question would have been good faith, the first question would have just like rolled off the back. It would have just been a funny, you know. Obviously,
Yeah,
she's
well,
wearing
there's
she's
nothing.
wearing that shirt because she wants to
There's
get the
nothing I
dudes
could
to
do
look
about
nice.
it, but I think it did open up the door for me to question Mr. Girl on why it's okay for him to troll about fucking 14-year-old girls'
Yeah,
panties with Bosch, but not okay for him to troll about how many abortions you've had. I
that's
think
true.
that's
That's a good
fair.
segue.
Well,
It was a good segue.
it was an android's panties, not an actual girl's. To be fair, in all fairness, it wasn't a human being he was talking about.
I thought he was talking about 14-year-old stripper panties.
No, they were androids. No, they were androids
They were
that
no.
looked like
They were
14-year-old
talking
girls.
about androids, but then he switched it over specifically to
Nope.
14-year-old stripper panties.
I've watched it several times. I'm a big fan
They
of
were
Mr.
androids
Girls.
that were
Well, I
indistinguishable from
just
human.
talked to
Yes.
him,
Is
and
that
he
right?
didn't say the
Draz-
word.
Drazi,
I
do you think?
literally I just talked to the guy. He didn't mention the word android once.
See,
Dra-
she looks like
he-
she's 12, but really she's 4,000 years old and is a
Dragon
witch.
Molly.
Hang on.
Yeah,
Stardust did. I think that Mr. Girl. I look. I can't speak for Mr. Girl, but generally speaking, when somebody tries to say something like that, he doesn't engage.
Hey, look, man,
I'm not
what's
trying
wrong
to
with the
defend.
itty committee.
All I'm saying is that what he actually said to Vaush, he was talking about an android that's indistinguishable. That's it. But I lost internet connection. I really just came back to say goodbye. If anybody wants to talk about any of that shit, I'm here. You can talk to me. I'm free most days after
Alrighty.
5 on most weekends, unless I already have something like some other conversation going on. I'm free most of the time. All you gotta do is get a hold of me.
Can I
You're going to bed
throw
now, though,
something?
right?
Can I throw something your way? Just as like a, it's about the abortion topic. It'll be really quick. I wrote it down.
Yeah, sure.
It's about the so we already talked about, you said it at 5 weeks, and we're just trying to figure out what is it between 4 and 5 that's the difference, right? We already talked about that, so we don't have to rehash it. And I think
Sure.
if your argument is that the brain or the thinking starts, and
Consciousness,
that's
sure.
the consciousness, whatever it is. I think you said thoughts. Is that right?
Yeah, if you really had to pin me down on what
forgot
makes
what word it was.
consciousness, I would say I prefer consciousness. But if people want a
okay.
more elaborate definition of that, I would say like thoughts.
Okay.
You
thoughts,
said
okay.
5 weeks for that?
So if you say if you said that if you put it at that point, and the starting point is what you're using to get out of the comatose person, right? I think, and then you said if they're dead, they don't matter, right?
Yeah, we give.
So
Who gives a fuck about a corpse.
Yeah, I think what you'll have to do to be consistent with that is to give moral weight to a dead person. Otherwise, I think Zen's gonna get you on the necrophilia.
Oh no eventually,
Eventually, and I think that's what
No,
I mean. Like,
I don't think
I'm
there's
just
anything
saying,
morally wrong with necrophilia either. It's just gross and weird.
Yeah,
It's icky. It's just
but
icky.
But the problem is when someone dies, we don't know if those thoughts end or when they end, or if they come back or when they will come back. And I think that's going to be an inconsistency. That's going to be.
Oh.
I'm just kind of ending this to just give it to you to think about, and then you can.
Sure,
I don't
but
know if it's something you thought about before or something like that. So.
Well, I mean, I kind of addressed that. I said when the consciousness ends. Yeah, like I think we define dead as no longer experiencing consciousness.
Do you
Right, but
understand?
then you still have the comatose person who has no consciousness apparently, or we
D-
don't know, or it's kind of one
Sorry.
of those.
Unless there's
Yeah.
a situation
Uh,
where a dead person has come back to life, and this is something that we should be like concerned about. Like you could
Well,
always come up with
It
some weird
happens
like
more
one
often
in a.
than you think, actually.
Yeah, there's
Waking up
lots
on
of
the
times.
Then I would
autopsy
say
table.
that that's a
Mhm.
mistake then.
Right, you would
uh,
consider them comatose, right? But the problem is we don't really know.
Yeah,
if
but
a
then
dead
they
person
then
has
they weren't
thoughts.
actually
we can-
dead.
No,
Right.
we can definitely check for brain death. It's not comatose is not the same as brain dead.
Yeah,
do you understand consciousness as neurons firing?
I understand
What are the
consciousness
mechanisms?
as being able to produce thought.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Because that's like a.
So
I
can,
always-
Because if you
begs
can't
the
produce
question-
thought, then I don't
Anyway.
understand what consciousness could possibly mean divorced from that.
Yeah. To me, it would beg the question of what's a thought. How do we measure that? Where do you get that from?
What is a thought?
Is there a machine that can measure thought? Is there something
So-
that can?
I would say we do have things that can measure thought activities, but I mean we can get really far down like presuppositionally and all that, and I would say that it's just as justifiable as anything else that we can say, but I think that
Sure. Yeah.
like thought predicates anything that's experienceable. So like I mean we could even go so far as to say like we don't know that we're real, right? The only thing we could ever say for certain is that something is thinking.
Okay. Right. So yeah, that to me that gives argument that that life begins at conception, and that even thoughts might begin at conception, and we should protect those as if
I
they do.
I don't
Yeah.
think
That's my.
whenever
would
I
be my
engage in anything, I'm unless we're actually talking about our presuppositions, which I think is usually not very interesting. What we're usually doing is we're moving past that and we're agreeing upon the idea that like I'm real, you're real, words mean what we think they mean, that communication's actually happening, that the laws of physics exist, math is real, logic exists. I think we're already accepting that in by having a
Sure.
conversation, and I'm going to operate under those. If we have to talk about presuppositional ideas and like axiomatic beliefs, we can, but I think that's like wholly unfruitful 99% of the
You kind
time.
of meted it to avoid his question, though, right?
You wouldn't want to kill someone who has a thought, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. I
Okay,
wouldn't
so-
want to kill a thinking thing.
But to me, it's super important that we don't set the line past the line. You don't set the bar past the line where they're or is it past? Yeah, you don't set the bar before the line where thinking, or past the line where thinking has already occurred, and then you're killing thinking beings, right? You're killing thinking humans, and that's the problem. Is we need to make sure that this person is not thinking or thinking, and how do you measure that? And we have to, and that's the problem.
We
It's like
do have a
if
way
we
to
have-
do that.
Well, how? Yeah, sure. That's what I'm asking. Like, how do you measure it? Is it
We can
cognitive
measure thought
chemical? Is
activity.
it-
We have machines that can measure it. Like, I,
No,
is
we-
there,
Isn't
is
there cognitive tests you can
we
do like
have-
testings for intelligence, that kind of stuff?
well, I don't
No,
care
we
about
have
intelligence.
machines that can test blood flow, and we have machines that can test neuron firing.
Yeah, and we have an understanding of the difference between when something is thinking and when there's brain activity that's happening that isn't related to thinking.
Elder, I wasn't here for the earlier part of the conversation, so I didn't quite get this. Are you pro-choice or pro-life?
I'm pro-choice, but I do have like
choice, but
caveats.
if you set the bar
How-
at 5 weeks, that would cover pretty much every abortion.
How
Not really.
however though, I
Cover
do
about half,
also I also think that when we're making prescriptions
5
about how
weeks?
society
Yeah, most
should
of them happen right
operate,
Yeah,
that-
most abortions happen in the first 3 weeks.
Go ahead,
yeah,
ElderDrazi, sorry.
I tend to think about systems differently than like my personal morality. I think that when we're in a system, that we should generally respect what people want to do as a whole, if it doesn't involve us. So, like for instance, I'm vegan, but I don't tell other people, ethically vegan, but I don't tell other people they're wrong for eating meat, even though I think that it's wrong to eat meat. I think
mean,
that
sure,
when
but
people
yeah, but
when
that's kind
people
of,
are
like,
indoctrinated to
unfruitful for
sure,
conversations, right? For these
right.
types of conversations, yeah.
right, which is why I didn't bring that up at all. But what I'm
Right, yeah.
saying is that if I have a moral prescription, I think that I'm bound to it. I also think that if you think wholly that it's the right of somebody to be able to have an abortion up until the moment that it's out of the body, then like you should also be compelled to fight for that as well. I think that the worst thing somebody can do is to know that something's wrong and then do it anyway. Right?
Do you play Magic the Gathering? Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I think we both know that I play Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it has ElderDrazi in your on your thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at my profile icon, it says MTG below it.
Can you
Oh, does it? Oh,
spell
yeah, it does. Okay.
cast?
What's that?
Can you counter a spell before it's cast?
No. It has to be on the
Come on.
stack. Come on.
So you're
I have a blue mana
default
symbol
choice,
on
right?
my left or my right arm here. Come on.
Everybody knows.
Oh, no, so you're saying you're pro-choice. So you said 5 weeks because I didn't hear that part of the conversation earlier. It's 5 weeks.
If I had to really be pinned down, like I also don't think that I should be the arbiter of this either. But yeah, if I'm being put in the position, like I would say 5 to 6 weeks. I don't really want to take a super strong stance on a very specific point, but if I had to, that would probably be yeah, like what I would have to go with. If I'm saying between
Wow.
5 and 6 weeks, I'd have to go with 5.
Why?
Well, I think we kind of went all over that.
yeah.
I'll let you go, and I'll talk to you later. It was good talking to you, and it was a good conversation.
Thanks.
like I
You
said.
too, and thanks for following me too. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no
it.
problem.
All right. Like I said, if you want to talk to me about this stuff further, just DM me. I'll be around. If I don't go to bed, I'm gonna be tired for work, and my job is my position's important, and my wife might be a little upset with me too.
What time is it right there? Like 2,
Oh,
3 in the
drink an
morning?
extra cup of coffee.
I'm sorry.
Drink an extra cup of coffee.
Well, I can't drink coffee. I have medication that would not go well with that.
What medication goes bad with coffee?
Adderall. I have ADHD. It's really bad, and it corrects
Okay,
that
so-
for me.
So take an extra quarter of Adderall.
I do not do that.
All right.
All right. Like I said, you can DM me. I'm pretty amenable with talking to people whenever, as long as my schedule is free. All right.
All right, bud. Take care.